India's Supreme Court orders an inquiry into police conduct during last month's Cockroach protests. Police reject an Amnesty International report accusing them of brutality. With more protests planned, how big a problem has the youth-led movement become for the government? This is Inside Story. Welcome to the program. I'm Cyril Vanier. In India, a Supreme Court panel is investigating police tactics at protests organized by the Cockroach youth movement in July. Accusations of sexual assault are to be fast-tracked for assessment, and a new Amnesty International report accuses officers of employing lethal weapons against some demonstrators. Police have denied that they did anything illegal. The demonstrations began as a response to a national exams scandal, and Prime Minister Narendra Modi has made concessions to pacify them. His government has offered free extra tuition and AI training. The education minister also resigned. That was a major demand of the Cockroach movement. But activists say it's not enough, and they're planning more protests for next month. So how big a problem has the Cockroach movement become for India's government? And what's giving the movement momentum? We'll be discussing all of that with our guests shortly. First, though, this report from Wilson Dysart.
Pellet guns and electric shock devices, some of what police used against young Indians who gathered to protest in the capital New Delhi last month. Now these potentially lethal weapons are the subject of an Indian Supreme Court inquiry and the focus of an Amnesty International report. The human rights group accuses Indian law enforcement officials of using these tactics in ways that violated both international and local laws.
We were breaching the barricades to march ahead. We were doing a peaceful march. We had no weapons in our hands. Suddenly, the police broke into a scuffle with us and fired tear gas shells at us. There were women, children, and elderly people who were blinded by the gas for 5 to 10 minutes, and the crowd almost trampled them.
Amnesty says authorities recorded that at least 400 people were injured in the protests from July 20th to July 24th. But the New Delhi police deny any wrongdoing. The protests did get results. India's education minister stepped down. He had been in charge when a leak of medical school exam papers resulted in the cancellation of scheduled nationwide tests.
For the past several decades, both state governments and the central government have been facing the problem of paper leaks. As a result, the future of our students has also been put at risk. Keeping all these concerns in mind, reforms in the education and examination system have become essential across the country, both at the state and central levels.
The discontent that drove the demonstrations had been building for months, organized under the banner of the Cockroach Janta Party, or CJP, formed in the wake of the exam leak scandal.
People said it was merely a social media trend and that it would remain limited to social media. But today we have seen this is not a social media trend, it is a movement, and that movement has begun today.
The group's name was inspired by a top Indian jurist who compared young and unemployed people to cockroaches, but it has developed into a wider call for the government to do more to help them. Around 40% of graduates can't find jobs, according to a university study, with tech sector employment drying up. Some of the protesters had voted for Modi's governing Bharatiya Janata Party. India's next elections are scheduled for 2029, giving Modi time to try to convince young people to vote for him. But even if he can, voters will be going to the ballot box with memories, and for some, scars, of the crackdown. Wilson Dysart, Al Jazeera.
So let's bring in all our guests today. Sravasti Dasgupta is senior political correspondent at The Wire, and she joins us from New Delhi. Shaina NC is national spokesperson for the Shiv Sena party. That's a political party in India aligned with the governing BJP, and you're joining us from Mumbai. Uday Chandra is professor of comparative politics and international relations at Ashoka University, also joining us from the capital, New Delhi. Warm welcome to all of you. Sravasti Dasgupta, let's start with you. The Cockroach movement suspended its street demonstrations late July, but it has again called for a march, popular mobilization, early September. So it's flexing its mobilization muscle. Give us a sense of the mood in New Delhi at this moment in time. What are people saying?
You know, in a sense that in the last few days, last month, in fact, the mood in the capital has really changed. And I would like to go back a little bit into how things changed prior to July 20th, which is the day when the Delhi police unleashed brute force on protesters in the national capital. And as protests intensified after that, people were not really bogged down by the action that the police took on protesters in Delhi, and protests quickly spread all over the country. And as you showed earlier, in Bihar's Siwan, there was an AK-47 rifle used. Now, till now, it's been over a month since that has taken place. Yes, a Supreme Court committee has been formed and a minister has been asked to step down. But the fact is that the focus has continued to remain on the state of education in India. The Cockroach Janta Party has started a new program of sorts where they are visiting several government schools across India. They've already visited Maharashtra, which is a state in Western India. They have also been to Rajasthan. And they are continuing this program of fixing government schools. Now, their visits have shown that the government schools are in abysmal conditions, and children are studying in the most extraordinary conditions over there, which has created a political row over that as well. And authorities are fixing schools, for instance, in Rajasthan. But the reason the Cockroach Janta Party has called the protest, not a protest, it's a march that they have called on September 5th, which is about next month. The intention of the protest is that the protest in July was called off after the government, the central government, gave the assurance to the Cockroach Janta Party that their demands will be met. Now, apart from Dharmendra Pradhan's resignation, the negotiations with the government and the CJP at that time also included that no action will be taken on protesters, FIRs will be withdrawn, and that the government will provide compensation to those who had died by suicide during the preparation for the competitive examination, which was NEET, which is essentially a medical test entrance examination. So the Cockroach Janta Party is saying that those demands are not fulfilled, and therefore they're going to take out a symbolic march from India Gate, which is, it's a symbolic place in the national capital, from there to the Delhi police headquarters. And the message is very clear if one goes to look at it, because the opposition in the country, as well as the Cockroach Janta Party, have kept the Modi government on its toes, because the demand now is no
Sravasti
longer about
Dasgupta, let's leave it here for now. Let's pause for a quick second. You've given us a nice, and I have to say, pretty thorough summation of how we got here. I appreciate that, but there are several threads that we need to unpick, and we'll do that throughout the program. I will go now to you, Uday, Chandra, also in New Delhi, and I do want to pin you down on what the feeling is in New Delhi right now. And the reason I insist on this is that last time the Cockroach movement, and by the way, during the program, I'll refer to it as a movement and a party, just to make clear to our viewers, the official name is party. Cockroach Janta Party, JPC, but it is not a party in the electoral sense. It hasn't yet participated in elections, doesn't exist as a political party. So it's a movement to all intents and purposes, but the official name is party. Okay, we've said that. What is the feeling in New Delhi? Because last time they called their supporters to demonstrate and make a point against the government, it was explosive, and police cracked down on the protests. So what's the feeling now?
I think the initial demand from the protesters, whether they were affiliated with this quote-unquote party or not, the basic demand concerned exam reforms, the way in which exams are conducted, and the scandals that tend to emerge, and the fact that exams get postponed. There's a broader structural problem in how education connects with jobs in India. And that's a structural economic problem that any government, any party has to deal with. Now we have a third problem, which is disproportionate use of police force and paramilitary force on unarmed and peaceful protesters. And so while the education minister's resignation has, partly tackled, the demands that were made by the CJP, We now have a much more serious concern that's being raised by the Supreme Court, by the independent media, whatever is left of it in this country, and by ordinary citizens. And unfortunately, the government has given us no answers whatsoever. Who ordered these protesters to be struck down? Who ordered the use of pellet guns? And who ordered the police to treat unarmed civilian protesters as enemies of the state?
Shaina NC, in your view, how high up does it go, the responsibility for the police actions in late July, the crackdown on the protest that left hundreds, by the police's own account, hundreds of people injured, including some people blinded by pellets?
So we clearly believe that the youth are not the future, they are the present, and we respect them and their views. Now, if you see their agitation, be it on NEET or UG papers, that is absolutely legit. If at all the government of the day has tried to work out that all the loopholes of the system be addressed through dialogue. The Education Minister, Dharmendra Pradhan, resigned. The Supreme Court, that had the 5-member panel with 3 retired judges and 2 police chiefs, clearly said that the police violence or pellet gun use was up for investigation. And the investigation, if there are certain perpetrators of crime who are trying to destabilize India, then that must be looked at too, because you cannot be disrespecting the police forces too, who are trying to maintain law and order. Having said that, of course, welcome to the Cockroach Janta party for agitating, for raising issues which are of interest to Gen Z, Gen Alpha. And you cannot, at a situation such as this, where such large numbers come out, you cannot resist using water cannons or tear gas in particular cases if you have to ensure that the other people at large are not harmed. 118 people from the police were injured.
So can I address this, because we have a very interesting investigation in this that's been done by Amnesty International, which, as you know, published a report earlier this week. They looked at allegations of on both sides, right? And they say, yes, there were isolated incidents of protesters throwing rocks at the police, none of which, according to the Amnesty International report, justify using illegal means of excessive force, including lethal force in some cases.
I am not for 1 minute endorsing the cause of any kind of pressure. If at all, India has always been a country where we've had peaceful agitations. And when I say peaceful agitation, it is to raise an issue. The Cockroach Janta Party may have raised an issue, but the police has done what it needed to ensure that people are not inconvenienced. And at the same time,
people were
who are
inconvenienced.
miscreants
They were
are brought
injured.
to task.
Hundreds of people were injured.
So I don't
Who is
only
responsible?
go by Amnesty International. The matter is in court. Let the courts investigate. And as far as the international media is concerned, I will only request you that when you are reporting, please do understand there are 2 sides to a story. When you have 118 people who are doing their job as the police force to ensure that law and order is maintained, then you need to look at that also holistically. The government has said, please deliberate and please discuss the new bill in Parliament. And what did the opposition do? They chose to agitate outside Parliament and not even raise the serious questions in the public domain.
But I'm asking you a simple question. Who's responsible for policing?
Prime Minister Modi or the NDA government is doing something wrong. I disagree totally, because we are here to deal with people, to be with people, and to ensure that every citizen gets justice.
Who is responsible for the policing?
Who is responsible for?
For the policing.
Obviously, the Home Minister, the Home Department. And we are not... Look, if the police have done something wrong, it is going to be presented in a court of law. That's why I cited to you that there is a Supreme Court bench with 5-member panels. 3 are retired judges and 2 are retired police chiefs. Now, if there is even police violence, If there has been pellet gun use, the investigation will prove so. So please don't sit on this judgment trial, and portray in the international media that, oh God, look at what is happening in India. If at all, India has always contained and believed in ahimsa and the philosophies of Mahatma Gandhi, which is non-violence. You are welcome to agitate, but nobody should be hurt, not the police or citizens at large. And if there are certain foreign forces who are trying to destabilize India, they too must be exposed totally.
I don't know what you're referring to when you talk about foreign sources destabilizing India. We're asking
You mentioned Amnesty.
we're asking legitimate questions.
You mentioned
Yes.
Amnesty, who really
Yes,
don't have much
well-respected
to do with.
international human rights organization, and we're asking you questions that Indian protesters themselves
We're
are
a
asking of the
well-respected
police.
government.
In fact, that is why the next protest, which takes place and is scheduled for September 5th, is aimed no longer at the parliament, but it is headed to police headquarters, and that is Indian youth that have decided to do that. Sravasti, Dasgupta, what is to go back to what was part of our original question, what is the discussion in Delhi now about this, about the fact that, this is a movement that started with specific exam integrity issues, and then it broadened to education issues, and now they're tackling what they perceive to be police violence?
So there are many facets to it, as you pointed out. Of course, there is the question of the police violence. And as Ms. Shaina NC has pointed out, that there is a Supreme Court panel that is going to look into this. But the fact is that in the same case, in the Supreme Court, the Delhi police has filed an affidavit in which while it has denied using excessive force, it has said that over 200 public or protesters have been injured, while 240 Delhi police personnel or RF personnel have been injured. So there is an admission that a large number of protesters have been injured along with police personnel. In Bihar, Siwan, where we saw an AK-47 rifle was being used during the protest. AK-47, just to remind our viewers, is an assault rifle. The Bihar government, in an affidavit in the Supreme Court, has admitted to the use of the AK-47 rifle on the protesters, but they have said that it has not injured anyone. They have said that a 9mm pistol, however, has resulted in minor injuries, which is not directed at the protesters, but it has resulted in those injuries. Just some days back, we saw the leader of opposition in the Lok Sabha, Rahul Gandhi, camped outside the Delhi police headquarters in Delhi to ensure that an FIR, which is a police complaint, first information report, is filed in the case of a pellet gun injury victim. It took the entire day for that to be done, while FIR is due process. So there is a question of accountability on one hand, which is why the march from India Gate to the Delhi police headquarters is important, because it puts the onus and the need for accountability on the doorstep of the Delhi police, and inadvertently at the doorstep of the Home Minister Amit Shah, who is in a sense the second most powerful person in India after Prime Minister Narendra Modi. And we saw that during the entire monsoon session of Parliament that has just gotten over about 10 days back, there was a demand from the opposition for Home Minister to come to the House and give a statement. He said that he's ready to do so, but he did not eventually come. And we saw on the last day, Prime Minister Modi as well as Amit Shah were in Parliament, but there was no statement delivered. So there is a question of accountability. There's a question of the government addressing, while yes, a Supreme Court panel has been formed, just Modi's ministers, union ministers, have till now denied that any shots have been fired at all. And that statement too has changed after the Supreme Court panel has been formed, from no shots being fired, which is what a union minister, MOS PMO Jitendra Singh, said inside Parliament, that when no shots have been fired, there's no question of who issued those orders. And the same statement was also made by JP Nadda, another union minister, and Kiran Rijiju, who questioned in an interview, where have shots been fired? Now JP Nadda, yesterday, 2 days back, he has said that the Supreme Court will look into whether shots were fired or not. So the statements have changed from no shots fired to the court is going to look into whether any shots were fired or not. So the question of accountability on what really happened, the kind of action that we saw, that everybody saw on their phone screens, across social media, television channels, who ordered that? That is a question that the government is yet to answer. And The other part of this political accountability is also the fact that the education system has also come under the spotlight. People are raising questions. We are seeing children, school children,
Yes. So if you'll allow me
states
to
like
jump in,
Uttar
this is very
Pradesh.
interesting, and I would like to broaden the conversation out to beyond just the matter of policing and policing tactics, as important as they are, and they are, as of a couple of days ago, under review by, as several of you have mentioned, a newly appointed panel of the Supreme Court, or appointed by the Supreme Court. The question, and Uday, Chandra, if you could address this for us, the question I wanted to ask you is how big of a problem, how big of a challenge is this for the BJP and for Prime Minister Modi himself? Because among the students and the youth who gathered in New Delhi and in Bihar, but let's focus on New Delhi for a moment, in New Delhi late July, were people who said, my parents are staunch BJP loyalists. My parents have voted for BJP, have always voted for BJP. These are youth who should be, by all accounts, part of the BJP base, and they were rallying against the government's policies. How big of a problem is it if the government is indeed disconnected from the youth?
I distinguish Mr. Modi from his party in answering this question, because Mr. Modi and his deputy, Mr. Amit Shah, are under the spotlight, and they have refused to offer anything resembling accountability to the public and to the media. And they have refused to come to Parliament and make a statement despite repeated demands from many quarters. The BJP as a party negotiated with the Cockroach protesters, and they did it in a way that diffused the situation successfully. Mr. JP Nadda and others who were involved in those negotiations did the job very well, in my view. However, this has nothing to do with the questions being raised by the Supreme Court about policing at this point. So the buck stops with the Home Ministry, whether it's the head of the Delhi police, whether it's other people, bureaucrats in the ministry, or whether it's the minister himself. We need an official statement. The citizens of this country demand it, regardless of what Amnesty or Al Jazeera says. And lastly, the party needs to understand that many of the students who were there and their families voted for the BJP government, and they deserve better than what was done to them. And so the BJP as a party, as a parliamentary party, needs to understand that accountability is the need of the hour. Gestures need to be made. Its parent organization, the RSS in Nagpur, has already started making those gestures, connecting with youth. And it is very important that the party separates itself from personality cults and moves on. The party has a future. People have voted for it. They may well be moving beyond the people who got the BJP into power over the past 12 years. Parties, like all other organizations, must evolve. They must change as public demands and concerns change.
Shaina, does the BJP have a youth problem?
No, I totally disagree. Look, the BJP has always worked, has introspected, and has ensured that whether it is decisions which are taken in court, outside court, the UGC rules, where the center has listened to the Supreme Court, you have a CID probe, you have a CBI investigation, you have all systems being revamped. And I only want to say that, for all these people who have jaundiced and who are constantly targeting Prime Minister Modi, if you look at today, the literacy rate in India, it has gone up. If you look at women's empowerment, we are much more safe, secure, financially empowered, as well as educated. If you look at the opportunities which are given by the government, the CJP, like you take an example of a state like Jharkhand, they were agitating for 36 days, and the state government, which was that of the Congress, chose not even to respond. I mean, you can't have selective amnesia where Rahul Gandhi shows up where he wants to and then otherwise hits out at the government for no rhyme or reason. In Jharkhand, which is a state in India, you had arrests, you had a probe, you had a talk committee, you had reforms promises, and still for 40 days the students were agitating. Cut to, if you take Delhi in the center, where the NDA and the Prime Minister and our governments have been working with all our support. I mean, you've seen that you have a serious Supreme Court investigation, which we welcome. Let the truth be unfolded.
But your points
you
are well
deflecting
taken.
from the issue on the cause of agitation. The cause is not agitation. The cause is what the students want, which the government has done. And that's what is important to be debated on.
Your points are well taken, but that's not quite my question. The fact remains, and it can't be ignored, that there is a viral, popular, youth-led movement that is essentially saying to this government, things aren't quite working out for us as they are right now on a number of levels, education-wise. So you're shaking your head. You don't see that? You don't hear that?
No, I don't see that. I don't accept that. And look at the kind of good work that the Prime Minister has done, whether it is empowering households by giving them homes or whether it's giving gas cylinders to women, Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, which means homes for people, whether it is, there's so many schemes, Ladki Behan Yojana, where women are empowered, women who are given education in schools, primary, secondary. I mean, you can have after 12 years one protest and believe that, oh, this is toppling the government. It's not so. It's not true. 140 crore Indians determine the future of Prime Minister Modi and the NDA. And please, let's have a debate on Al Jazeera after 2029. And you will realize that history has been created by a man who has honestly worked for the country tirelessly, day in and day out. And where he is wrong, he has accepted, as has in this agitation of the students, where there have been proactive measures taken.
But again, this somewhat sidesteps the questions. We're not saying or claiming that Mr. Modi doesn't have achievements, that he doesn't have a track record after his 12 years in power. We are saying that right now, as of the last few weeks, the last couple of months in India, there is undeniably a social movement led by the country's youth that has aspirations that are not being met at the moment in this country. I'm afraid that's all the time we have for today. I do want to thank our guests for joining us in this discussion, Sravasti Dasgupta, Shaina NC, and Uday Chandra. Thank you very much. Thank you too for watching. You can see the program again anytime by visiting our website, aljazeera.com. For further discussion, go to our Facebook page. That's facebook.com/AJ Inside Story. You can also join the conversation on X, our handle there, @AJ Inside Story. For now, that's it from me, Cyril Vanier, and the whole team here in Doha. Al Jazeera's coverage continues in a moment. Stay tuned.